As Hawks English Specialist, Sara Quinn develops and maintains the English product line. Sara joined the Hawks family in 2017, and since then, the English team has launched the new English composition with integrated review course and 2 new print resources, Foundations of English Guided Notebook and Foundations of English Grammar Workbook. We are excited that Sara's here to share her insight and experience with us today. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to enter those into the question and answer box, and we'll address them at the end of the talk. There are a lot of you on the webinar today, so we can always respond to you via email after the presentation if we do run out of time. Before I turn it over to Sara, I'm going to launch a poll to get us started. One of the ways we at Hawks are helping educators address underprepared students is through providing materials for co-requisite courses. We'd like to see your level of interest and familiarity with, in co-requisite courses. Please take a minute to vote. We'll give it just another few seconds. All right, thank you for voting. And on that note, I will hand it over to our presenter to discuss the results and get us started. Take it away, Sara.
Thank you, Danny. Hi, everyone. As Danny mentioned, my name is Sara Quinn, and I'm the English Product Specialist for Hawks Learning. It's nice to see. It looks like we have a pretty nice variation of interest and kind of familiarity levels with co-requisites. A few of you are using them now, just learning more about them. Maybe some of you aren't as familiar or kind of in the stages of moving towards them. So that kind of sets a nice tone for me to start off with this presentation. And for today's presentation, let's see. For today's presentation, I will be giving a very brief overview of the company, and I'll be touching a bit on just some main considerations of the co-requisite model in general, and then specifically as technology can be a great aid to the co-requisite model. Before jumping into English composition with integrated review, which is our new title that I'll be sort of showcasing in depth today. I know some of you may be familiar with Hawks and some of you might not be as familiar, so I'll just give a very brief overview and introduction to our courseware. And what you're seeing here is the student's view of the courseware, and this is what we call our recommended learning path. So there are 3 modes, and the first being Learn, which is a multimodal presentation of the instructional content. So we consider it kind of an interactive textbook, if you will. So once students are familiar with the instructional content in Learn, they would then move into Practice, which is exactly as it sounds. It's a penalty-free practice area with lots of algorithmically generated iterations of questions for them to practice at their own pace, get familiar, and in practice they'll have the help of seeing error-specific feedback based on their responses and other tutoring components like helpful hints, which often refer directly to the learned content, maybe any helpful definitions, as well as solution explanations. So students kind of build up their familiarity and comfort levels with practicing those skills in practice before hopping into Certify, which is the 3rd mode. And in Certify, they really prove what they know. So Certify is sort of the homework assessment portion, the graded portion, and students will see familiar question types and formats as they've seen and practiced in the practice mode, but they'll never be the same because of those algorithmically generated iterations. And the main difference in Certify is that they aren't equipped with those learning aids. They're not given hints or specific feedback. because we really want them to be able to demonstrate genuine knowledge of the content after practicing it on their own. So that's a very concise overview of the courseware, and if you are new to Hawks and you'd like a more in-depth look at it, definitely let us know, and one of our representatives will be more than happy to reach out to you. I also think it's important to mention that we take a very contributor-centered approach to product development as a company, as a whole. We really trust and value the insight and expertise of educators like yourselves. So each step of the product development and beyond, from visioning and preliminary research and table of contents design, all the way to post-release. So after the product is launched, we work with instructors like you and content experts all over the country in order to make sure that our materials are as effective and helpful as possible for today's classroom and today's learner. And especially, we also take into consideration student feedback because we want to make sure that our materials are as effective and helpful for students and their learning experience as well. And before I sort of touch on some corequisite takeaways, I want to just mention and address that we know the corequisite movement does come with sort of many different viewpoints and caveats, if you will, but I just want to share some of the main considerations and takeaways that played a factor in our approach to developing this new title. And the first one is increased retention, which is, of course, the ultimate goal. Co-requisite and accelerated learning models or accelerated learning programs can reduce that time between remediation in the first few years and graduation, as well as high attrition rates between terms. And especially and obviously decrease debt. College is expensive, so by eliminating those prerequisites and extra semesters, that extra time and tuition, as well as bookstore expenses, are taken off the table. And equitable learning. We know and strongly believe that confidence plays a very considerable role in student success, and CORECs can sort of level the playing field a bit and give all students, all college students, the chance to be treated as college students and a chance to really earn credits that are on par with the rest of their classmates. And when it's boiled down, the corequisite model really aims to elevate those struggling students and bridge that gap between remediation in the first few years and graduation, which of course is the ultimate goal of school. And before I move on to technology, I would just like to get a feel for the types of materials that you all think would best support a corequisite course. So Danny will launch another poll, a second poll, and I'll just take a quick moment now to let you all respond to that poll. Just take a few more seconds.
Yep, just a couple more seconds. We've almost got all the votes in.
Cool. Oh, great. Okay, so it looks like we've got a nice mix of pretty much everyone who feels that both print and courseware materials would be helpful. And that is a great segue, great to know. Thank you all for participating and responding. And that will transition me into talking about technology in the co-requisite classroom and how it can really be best utilized to support the co-requisite classroom specifically. We believe that adaptive technology leads to student-forward learning, and it plays a huge role in success in academics. Most courses are reliant on technology in at least some way or another. And sort of the first appeal to that technology is relevancy. All students, traditional, non-traditional, online, on campus, all students need to be technologically proficient, at least at some degree, in today's 21st century workforce. And even the students who might seem savvy, technologically savvy, if you will, because they're on their phones all the time or they utilize social media, it's very possible that even those students aren't technologically literate when it comes to professional and academic settings. So exposure to technology tools in the first years of college, we believe will really set them up for success later down the road. And the second appeal is practicality. So intuitive and simple resources really allow students to focus on mastering the concepts in an accessible way. So especially for those college students who may work full-time or have families, they should have that flexibility through technology to work on their schoolwork wherever and whenever works for them. And of course, immediate feedback is a huge practical approach for technology. So eliminating that time spent grading on your end, on the instructor's end, as well as eliminate the time that students have to wait for that feedback, which can be days or even weeks, is a huge approach and huge benefit of having immediate feedback in automated grading. And students, we believe, should be able to navigate through assignments quickly and effortlessly without the need for assistance or troubleshooting. We've designed our courseware to be really intuitive, so students should be able to hop right in and get started. And I will just quickly mention, that being said, if they do ever need troubleshooting help or technology help, Hawks as a company focuses on very family-style service. So our tech support team always answers on or before the fourth ring. So you'll have access, you and your students would have access to chat with a live person, a real person. And we also offer 24/7 chat support. So students shouldn't need much help walking through the courseware or any technological program, but if they do, Hawks is always there to help them out quickly. And sort of the last element of practicality, simplified organization of reminders of important due dates and assignments allow students to really easily refer to past assignments if they need it and lessons. And I'll also quickly mention that students will receive lifetime access to Hawks, including updated content. So very often we see students jumping back into English composition a few years down the road in a history course if they're writing a research paper because they need access to reference those research styles, and they would always have updated access to the content. So it kind of streamlines everything academically for them all in one place. And the last facet of technology is measuring success. And when it comes to analytics, technology is just such a powerhouse. That advanced reporting functionality really allows you as the instructor to track the performance and effort and behavior even of both individual students in your course and the class as a whole. And that progress measurement is absolutely essential, especially in a corequisite course, where we really believe that each success, even if it's big, even if it's small, should really be emphasized and capitalized. And each misconception should be addressed quickly in order to create forward momentum and sustainable forward momentum. So keeping all those factors in mind, we developed our first corequisite product, which is English composition with integrated review. This is a blend of our first-year writing course, which is English composition, with a remedial review of very fundamental reading and writing skills. So each composition chapter is preceded by targeted review content. We've also added study skills like time management, ways to reduce test anxiety, taking advantage of campus resources, and those really non-cognitive skills that can sometimes be a dividing line between a struggling student possibly and a successful one. We also use accessible and relevant language across all of our products, and this product is no exception. We use a very conversational and straightforward tone because we know that the concepts of a first-year writing course can be difficult enough, especially for co-requisite students who might already feel a bit marginalized in that course. So we don't ever want the language to be a learning barrier. We don't ever want them to have to focus on navigating, sort of any stuffy language in the body content. We want them to just be able to focus on learning what they need to know. And we take a very contextualized approach to examples and instruction. So students are always consistently shown plenty of really relevant examples in a meaningful context before they're ever required to demonstrate mastery of any skill. And we go back to that adaptive, individualized feedback. Throughout each mode of the courseware, Learn, Practice, and Certify, students will see adaptive feedback based on their individual responses. And this really clearly communicates those kind of targeted misconceptions and offers specific solutions for success moving forward. I'll touch a bit on the structure and how the structure can really benefit and support the co-requisite classroom. And to illustrate this, what you're seeing is an example of the Comp R. I'll refer to this as Comp R instead of English Composition with Integrated Review, just to make it a bit easier on all of us. But this is an example of the table of contents. And when we were developing this title, we really asked ourselves, what would students absolutely, positively need to know in order to be successful in each core composition chapter? So this example, Composition Chapter 4, which you see in the blue box, is all about the common 5-paragraph standard academic essay. And before they can master that, of course, students would first need to know at the basic level how to group information, and then how to draft and revise and sort of polish at the paragraph level first before they can enter tackling a 5-paragraph essay. So whether students in the co-requisite section or learning support section are seeing these review concepts for the very first time, or whether they just need a bit of a refresher, these integrated review lessons should really equip them with the tools that they need to successfully tackle that upcoming core content. This is another example of the table of contents. This shows Composition Chapter 9 and how we approach grammar kind of from a comprehensive overview, but the preceding review content breaks it out very granularly in order to target any skill gaps. And not only is the structure beneficial for underprepared students, but we also make sure to communicate why. So why the review concepts are important, how they factor into a first-year writing course, and how students can really be making the most of that preparation time. I'll move into sort of that tailored adaptive feedback in practice. And this is a breakdown of what students see at the end of each assessment. So this is an illustration of which concepts they're mastering and which they're still struggling with. So students would click on the areas of difficulty and be taken directly to a tailored set of practice questions. And it really clearly communicates to students where they stand. And we really believe that sort of validating their achievements as well as alerting them to redirect their focus where necessary is really important to sort of communicate where they stand and how they can move forward. And it can also show patterns and inform you as the instructor about potential topics to review further in class. This is an example of a practice test that students can create. And this feature is especially helpful in a co-requisite course where those differences in skill gaps that are going to exist in any course can really feel magnified, especially in co-requisite, to both the students and the instructors. So practice tests, customizable tests really can allow students to take ownership of their learning path and experience and sort of their individual path to success. So this example, you can see students can customize the name and even time limitations if that's something that they struggle with. They can practice taking a timed test in a comfortable practice setting, and then they would identify any lessons that they needed to practice. They would select them, add them to the list of questions, and then begin practicing. This is an example of immediate application and that idea of students really applying what they're learning as they go and as they're learning it. This is an on your own, and in these activities, students will see feedback about their answer choice that explains or clarifies why it's wrong, which is what you see on this slide, or as you see in this one, why it's correct. So that approach to specific feedback every step of the way kind of challenges the idea that some students might have of, vague but concrete yes or no answers in academics, and really takes the extra step to explain the why behind their learning process. I mentioned relevancy earlier as it applies to technology sort of on a larger scale, but I do want to zoom in a bit on specific examples of content relevance specifically. These, what you see, are called further resources, and they're engagement boxes throughout that Learn content. They really give students the opportunity to connect lesson concepts outside of the classroom. So these direct students to trustworthy sites and articles. We have a few that link directly to Purdue OWL, dictionary.com, just so that we can really verify that when they're researching outside of the courseware, they're getting information from the right places as opposed to the wrong places. And I do hesitate to even use the word engaging, even for these, because we know that's such an overused word in the educational community, but we feel that these examples, and these are just a few, really apply the lesson concepts in areas that students genuinely either have interest in or at least some familiarity with outside of the classroom. So social media topics, social media etiquette, YouTube, TED Talks, podcasts, lots of those really relevant examples that can apply the lesson content outside of the classroom. This is another example, and specifically how customization functionality can enhance that content relevancy. So in this example, the instructor has pulled in a clip from Harry Potter and coupled it with a practice prompt, writing a few sentences as it applies to the lesson content, which is sensory details in composition. And that customization, the ability to embed those videos and bring in outside resources, that customization really grants a ton of flexibility and a ton of options for incorporating fun applications. And I do not hesitate to say fun there, because who doesn't love Harry Potter? Harry Potter is fun. And in corec specifically, in that yellow bubble you'll see, customizable notes really are helpful for easy communication and management across different sections while using the same product. So if you have students in a learning support section or a lab section, but also students who are just taking English composition, these customization notes really allow you to address each section separately while everyone is on the same field. And we've also seen instructors upload lecture videos of themselves down in this box to kind of further illustrate or clarify lesson concepts, approach it from an individual approach, however they feel is necessary, or provide specific commentary or examples that they want to incorporate. And that functionality and that idea is especially helpful in online courses too. In terms of a true sort of multimodal learning environment, I want to show the live chat and discussion board features. These allow for students to kind of communicate with each other and with you in a very familiar way for them and in a comfortable way, which is instantly and electronically. Very often, I'm sure you all have seen 21st century students are really most comfortable communicating either over the phone, via text message, or online instead of in person. And those students who might not otherwise come to your office hours or pipe up in class might feel more comfortable utilizing these methods, live chat and discussion boards, to ask questions and be sort of more participatory. You also have the option to host virtual office hours, and if you ever have sudden schedule changes or sudden class cancellations and need to immediately contact your students, this is a really simple and easy way to do so. And of course, that discussion board just gives students a space to easily interact with any assignments that you might choose or ask them to upload, articles, writing prompts, things like that. And all of this is kind of in one place on the student dashboard. In this example below is Smart Review that we'll touch on. This is our online writing submission and review platform. So this application offers both peer-to-instructor and peer-to-peer, which is what you're seeing here. Students can, or you can customize the anonymity settings. So if you feel that students might be a little bit more comfortable with their partner not knowing whose paper they have and vice versa, especially in a co-requisite setting, you can make all of it anonymous across the board. And you can also require any number of tags and comments, which is the feature that is highlighted here. So the tags and comments really just ask students to interact with the writings and exercise that ability to effectively analyze a piece of writing, someone else's writing. And that nature just really gets at the core of peer reviewing, which is just sharpening, revising, and editing skills. And technology and streamlined platforms like this can really make it kind of a simplified process, both for students and instructors. And here at the bottom, you can prompt students to analyze any particular elements of the assignment based on the nature of the assignment. And they can also add general feedback and commentary. And they keep saying they because this example is a peer-to-peer review, but this also applies to student to instructor review. So you would be able to go in and annotate their papers and grade it the same way that they would be sort of giving their partner's paper a grade. We just wanted to make sure that students have a kind of simplified space to be able to flex their peer reviewing and writing skills. And lastly, I have been talking a lot about technology, which we do feel, of course, is a very powerful tool, both for co-rec instructors and students. But I'm glad that most of you mentioned that you would like kind of a hearty mix of both courseware, technology, and print products. Because for tactile practice, we do have the Integrated Review Guided Notebook. And in this notebook, students will follow along with the Learn screens. It mirrors them directly, and they'll work through that instructional content within the paper, pencil, notebook space. So the notebook, the nature of the notebook really directs students' attention to key lesson concepts through the use of fill-in-the-blank activities, key terms exercises, and we also give them a big idea at the beginning of each lesson as sort of a blueprint for them to kind of prep themselves for what they'll be learning. It's a really great resource for students who just need a bit of extra tangible interaction with the concepts. And we've also seen it used as a great accountability tool so that you can kind of ensure that your students are meaningfully connecting with the instructional content instead of just hopping right into practice or certify. You can kind of ensure that they're meaningfully working through that, getting familiar, and applying their knowledge within the practice space of a notebook. And that is it for my presentation. Thank you all so much. Danny, I would love for you to let me know if we have any questions.
Yep, we've already got a few questions coming in. Reminder to everyone to add any additional questions they want answered into the Q&A box. I'll start with an easy one for you, Sarah. We had Paige wondering if she heard it correctly that students get lifetime access.
Yes, absolutely. Lifetime access, including all updated content. So as I mentioned, we see the research styles is a really big one. Any updates to those, which happen frequently, students will have access to all of that content for life.
And Paige had one other question, wondering how the English composition with integrated review differs from the Foundations of English product.
So the Foundations of English product is an integrated reading and writing course, and that is a very sort of remedial approach to those foundational reading and writing skills, whereas English composition with integrated review is our core English composition course, which is our first-year composition writing course, blended with bits and pieces of a review of reading and writing concepts. So at its core, English Composition with Integrated Review is a first-year writing course, but it incorporates those review concepts sort of for that remedial instruction, whereas Foundations of English essentially is just the remedial review of reading and writing.
Perfect, thank you. And that puts us right at about 3 o'clock, concluding our 30-minute webinar, unless I see any more immediate questions pop into the box. A reminder that if you do have any questions, you can email them to us at marketing@hawkslearning.com, and we'll compile them for Sara and have her get back to you. Sara, thank you so much for the presentation today, and I would like to thank all of you all for attending. We will be emailing out a link to view this webinar on demand shortly. You can view all our webinars, past, present, and future, on our blog at blog.hawkslearning.com. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.